Good evening. It's Friday night. It is 7 o'clock. We've actually started on time for once, and you are tuned to the Friday night football pitch with myself, Cammy McDonald, and as always, regular co-host Dennis Newell. Tonight, following on from last week, we've had a couple of assistant managers. We're actually joined by a player tonight, Jay Kennedy, Clyde's new number one. He's made a number of appearances this season. Started back on the 4th of January against Stirling Albion for his debut. But he's featured in the last 3 or 4 games, 2 of which have been wins for the Bully Wee away. Wins for the Bully Wee away at Stranraer last week, and obviously at home the week before to Bonnyrigg Rose. So we're joined by Jay Kennedy tonight, discussing what's happening in League Two. Obviously, his hopes for the rest of the season, as Clyde pretty much secured their place in League Two for the coming season. And we'll basically start it there. Dennis, good evening to you. Good evening, Jay. How are we both?
Good evening, Cammy. Good evening, Jay.
Evening, Cammy. Evening, Dennis. Yeah, I'm all good. Quite excited. Not really done anything like this before, so it's a wee bit new to myself. So yeah, just taking it as it comes.
No problem. We promise we will be gentle. We're probably less demanding than a Clyde support, that's for sure. So we will be nice and gentle with you. Obviously, as I say, you made your debut against Stirling Albion back on the 4th of January, a 2-0 home victory. Pretty comfortable performance that day. Good performance for yourself. I was actually at the game. Played particularly well. I was kind of surprised to see, obviously came in, Hemfrey, the regular keeper, been injured. But you've come in the last few games, pretty much cemented your place. How's it felt to basically get your first team debut this season?
It's a wee bit different compared to the seasons that I've had. So I'll take it back a couple of years ago. So first kind of got into League Two by signing for Forfar. Forfar never played a game in League Two, but got the experience of being around that league. So seeing how it is, the standard of the pitches and stuff like that. So it was one of the ones of expectations weren't to what I thought it was at first. I thought it would have been a wee bit different, but to get my debut on an Astro pitch probably helped, instead of like a cut up grass field type of thing. So I think playing on that kind of helped, if I'm being totally honest, compared to totally other parks. Or how would you say? They aren't the best standard in Scotland, so you don't really get the best standard until you go up the leagues of the pitches. Yeah. So to play on that as your first kind of game, being used to academy football, so it's a wee bit different, which kind of helped in that sense.
Yeah, and obviously you're saying about the difference in... Oh, Dennis is away. You're saying about the differences in pitch. Obviously last week, that was a quagmire you played on last week down at Stair Park. A dreadful looking park down at Stranraer. So... Is that the first time you played on grass this season?
No.
Or first time you played on swamp this season?
Exactly. No, so obviously made the debut then. Big Robbie, he's been magnificent since he's been in the team and stuff like that. So it was one of the ones of just waiting either him to fall ill, which he did, and that's how I got my debut, and then went back into the team, which was the way football works. If you've done nothing wrong, then you should stay in the team. So then he went back in. Then we ended up... The big man, the gaffer pulled me in saying he's going to play me on the Saturday. Elgin away, that's grass, obviously.
Grass, yeah.
First 10 minutes comes. I've tried to play like an AstroTurf park and kick the ball as hard as I possibly could, which didn't realise is completely different on a grass pitch. And Trundle footed the ball straight to their player. He's put it in over me. Not a great start to after the gaffer pulling you in saying, yeah, I'm going to play you this weekend. So it was one of the ones of grass on that pitch. And then we get to, who was it after that? Bonnyrigg at home. So we play Bonnyrigg back on AstroTurf Park. So I was like doing my warm-up, and I changed it a wee bit to that back pass to see if it affected me. First one, trundle foot again. I'm like, no, it can't be one of the days of like having 2 in 2 weeks. So I was like, nah, I need to have another one here. So then done the second one in the warm-up, had it first time, went back to normal. I was like, right, okay, that's us back to normal.
Yeah.
And then we get on to Stranraer, which is, we get down there on the bus. We're like that, just get a pitch inspection here, because the way we were on the bus, the weather was just the rain was hitting our bus like it was mad, and we were like, I wonder if this will be on. Like, no one, no disrespect to Stranraer, but no one wants to go to Stranraer on a Tuesday night down there. Like, too far away from most of the Glasgow boys, especially if it's weather like that. So it's like, so we get down there, and then the referee goes out, does a pitch inspection. His face says it all as soon as he drops the ball. He's like the game's off. We've been told game's off when we go in. Well, surely not. We've travelled all the way down. So I think the manager of Stranraer and the manager of Clyde, the gaffer, the two of them went into the referee's room, and I think they delayed it instead of calling it off straight away. We've walked out and seen the pitch, and it's like my best mate Logan, who's on the team. He's with a big pitchfork, like with his foot in the pitchfork in the grass, just how much it's like cut up already before just set foot on it. So we were like, nah, surely not. Like, we can't play on that. And then me and Big Robbie and James, the goalie coach, us three went out to warm up because it had been delayed, and we moved over to our box, which actually wasn't bad at all. My box before I was warming up in. Then we get to the second half, and then I go up to the other goal, just a field, just full on mud. Yeah. It wasn't no grass in sight. It was just so two different ends of the pitch, two different ends of weather conditions, and then the wind doesn't help either. So it was an overall good day for the boys, but weather conditions, terrible day.
So I know driving down, I'm pretty much convinced that the game wasn't going to be on. I mean, we're probably coming down after, obviously, you guys have got there. So, I mean, coming down after the game, I mean, I'd stopped, just believe it or not, just outside a wee place called Galston.
Right.
I had no option. I had to stop, let's say, you know. And
yeah, of course.
So we get held up and a smash on the way down as well, you know. So so that was it. So I basically had to stop it just outside Galston. And as I say, I get out the car, and within 3 or 4 seconds, I was absolutely drowned. You know what I mean? It was just that the rain was torrential. So all the way down, we were basically in the car saying, no, there's absolutely no way this game's going ahead, you know. So I was very surprised that it went ahead, but obviously delighted that you guys got the result. And as I say, a result which as I say in the intro, Dennis, it pretty much secures Clyde's place in League Two. You know, that 9 points clear now of Bonnyrigg. We I think 5 games or 6 games to go. So I think Dennis, Clyde are pretty much safe. Something we've debated over a number of weeks.
Well, I think you were a bit doom and gloom, thinking they were actually going to the wall, never mind getting relegated. So there was a bit of despair when you were looking at 3 weeks ago. But you know that's the way the football is. 2 games changes the whole outlook for the remaining part of the season. And you know, I had a little look at it earlier on, and basically, I think it is a safety net beating Stranraer, whether it's a quagmire or no. Sometimes you're better actually battling in among the mud, getting the result rather than silky soccer and end up losing it and coming up the road with a custard pie, looking at relegation or at playoffs or whatever. So no, I think that's a brilliant result, and you know, you just look at it. You're talking about the next game. Yeah, I think it's a Meadowbank Stadium, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's at Edinburgh City away. So
you're going back a long while. I've been there with Stranraer at the Meadowbank Stadium. There you are. That shows you how long. Meadowbank Thistle. That was going back to a long while ago. So yeah, I've been there. I know what it's like. Didn't matter anyway. Stranraer at that time probably no much better. I think there were about 30 or 40 supporters there, and there wasn't much more at the game. Meadowbank Thistle didn't have a big following, but I know exactly what you're meaning. It is a bit distant, and to be honest, even if you had 5,000 in that ground, I think you would be struggling for atmosphere. But sometimes that works in your favour. Like, you just go out there and you focus on what you're needing, and that is the 3 points that you obviously are looking to get. And I'll tell you what, there's a good chance you'll get it. You know, and then you start to look at seriously thinking, I'm just looking at the league just now. You know, another 3 points is getting you just 2 behind Stirling Albion. So, and they're in 6. So who would have thought that 3 weeks ago? So I think you'll get a good chance of maybe ending up about 6th, maybe 7th if you let it slip. But it's there in front of you. I don't think there's any great teams there, Cammy, as you have spoke about all season. They're pretty much a muchness. And you look at teams even up the top here, Head, who are back in the top, who I tipped would win the league. They're back there, but only a point in it with East Fife. East Fife are strong contenders. And the other one that's I don't know what happened to them. They were looking really good with the 3 defeats in the trot is Elgin, but they've came back and they've had 3 victories back to back. So there's a tightness there. I would say the top 4 will probably won't change with Peterhead, East Fife, Edinburgh City, and Elgin. But see the rest, with the exception, I don't think Bonnyrigg will survive. But I think within the rest, you're all juggling for maybe 5th and 6th spot. And it's good to know that you've came into that team, Jay, just whenever you're maybe turning the corner. It reflects a bit in yourself. It's not as if you've conceded a lot of goals. I had a quick look there while you were chatting. And that's decent, and that's what goalkeepers are always looking for. The result is one, obviously, how many goals you're going to concede in a game. And it's not been big figures, and that's always a good sign.
I think for us, it's one of the ones. Us as a changing room, and the assistant manager and the gaffer, they two are reiterating. I think we all reiterate to everyone else, all each other. Is just we take game by game now instead of looking into too much. I think we just it's focus on the first game that's right in front of you, and then when that's out of the way, you go into the next instead of what can you do in so many months or what. People look at long-term goals more than the short-term.
Yeah.
What I've experienced from past ventures, but this year it's more of how can we just take game by game now, and then like you're saying about the goals and stuff like that. It's one of the ones of I think every goalkeeper doesn't like conceding goals. Even our team, even in training, if I shout at them, they'll scream back at me. So it's we all demand very high standards off each other as well. So it's not just one of the ones of we're not too fussed if we concede a goal. We take pride in our defending as much as our attacking. With Big Martin up top, he's the one that's flying for us now. But I think when you've got Lee, Logan, Howie, Tommy, Wee Ross, it's all of us are we're all in the same boat of the less goals that we concede, the more chance we're going to score more.
Yeah.
I mean, you're saying obviously you're good pals with Logan. He's come into the team the last number of weeks, obviously, because Lee's been missing. I mean, how much of a miss has it been missing your captain? Obviously, Lee, he was player of the season last season when he only spent 6 months at the club. But how much of a miss has he been the last few weeks?
Lee is massive for just his experience in this league. I think he's been in Edinburgh City, he's been at Stranraer, he's been at a good few clubs that's played in this league. So Lee's massive. But if you're asking how Logan's been for me, Logan's one of the best centre halves I've played behind. Just how technically gifted, he can move the ball, and then he's obviously huge, which helps me. The guy's massive. So for when you've got somebody in the box like Logan in the box, it's you've got that extra safety net of him. Especially maybe I know I'm getting criticised sometimes of not being the tallest goalkeeper out there, but it's one of the ones. If you've got a safety net like Logan, it's more of a freedom to come and collect that ball because Logan will do his job as well because he's done it week in week out every time he does play.
Yeah.
It's me and Logan we do everything together. After we play on a Saturday, we'll go do recovery on the Sunday. We'll do a gym during the week and stuff like that. So it's quite a close friendship, that one.
Good. And I mean, you broke into the team, as I say, the last number of weeks. As I said, I'd assume the team's goals is going to be to finish as high as possible in the league. But on a personal level, Jay, what's your own goals to basically cement your place, I'm assuming, and maybe push on next season and secure number one spot? Or
I think
do you look that far ahead?
Cammy, you've used the name. I know the number one, if that makes sense. See when you've got such a good goalkeeping group like me, Robbie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even put myself in that bracket compared to those two, but Brian as well. Well, Brian Kinnear, he's superb when he's back fit. So working with those two, it must give James a pure sore head. For those two especially, if the three of us were fit, it'd be a completely different scenario. But for me, just now, it's just taking game by game, try to stay in, try to do my job. Obviously, every goalkeeper's got their own little goals. Mine's is just add a goal with the previous gaffer as well. If I made so many appearances and stuff like that, then I'd just that I'd be happy and stuff like that. Just try to build myself into it. But now it's because I've got those appearances and stuff like that. I'm hungry just to kind of stay in the team and see what happens next year. obviously I'm up in the summer, so it's just between the club and myself to see what happens next year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And obviously, I know time's short tonight. As I say, I don't expect you to be on too late. It's obviously a game tomorrow, etc. But looking at the differences, obviously between the club now and at the start of the season, obviously you've had the new manager come in, Darren Young. He's done a really, really good job in terms of obviously getting results. You're unbeaten away from home in the last 4, which is something that I don't think many Clyde fans would have seen earlier on in the season. But morale-wise and obviously everything else, what differences has Darren Young made since he came in from earlier in the season?
I think the boys have just, it's not a matter of a difference. It's a matter of he's come in with a game plan of what he wants from his players, and I think we've just all bought into it. It's good having like Neil Scally's assistant as well, because you've got that in between of the players to the manager, and Scal's like good with that and stuff. So having such like a good background staff helps. So when he came in, he just had certain targets, certain aims, the way he wanted to play and stuff like that. I love playing with the ball at my feet, so if we can do it, we'll try and play. But if not, then that's when you have respect for the opposition, and you might need to go that direct way at times. But he knows the league. He's been at a few clubs in the league as well, so having that experience probably helps. I'm not saying that I knew, like, I've never worked with him before, so it's one of the ones. It's a different opportunity for me to, when the new manager came in. I was obviously coming back from injury. I tore my medial meniscus in my right knee, so it was one of the ones of the new manager came in. I'm sitting injured with Brian. The two of us are sitting like, because we had Big Milosh in as well when he was there as well. So it was 4 goalkeepers at one point he had on his books when he'd just come in the door, and he's got me and Brian, who signed at the start of the season, just sitting there. So I was like, great start for me when I'm injured. So it was more of the chance of getting back into training to impress him, to show him what I can kind of do. And then obviously the big Robbie was there as well. So it's just us two kind of battling it out, and it never stops in training. Whoever's playing, the other one's right. We're each down each other's necks, like who wants to play. So it's one of the ones of just if the standard's that high, you just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I've just looked at the fixtures you've got left. You've actually got 5 games with Peterhead being at the top of the league. So
yeah, they're
the last game of the season. So be prepared to clap them on the park, because I think there's a chance that by the way, I've done that when we were playing against Gretna. It's not nice, but you get there with it. So the thing is that's the point I would make, that the other 4 games you've got, looking at the fixtures, they're all achievable to get 3 points out of them. And if you look at that, it won't happen lightly because of the permutations, but you could end up in 5th spot. If you wrap the 4 games up. Now, it's quite a challenge when you consider, as we said right at the beginning, the potential of 3 weeks ago maybe going down or disappearing out of the division. So it's a massive turnaround. And, that dressing room, I would imagine, Jay, tomorrow will be buzzing against a team that's doing quite well, with the exception of Edinburgh City. I think they've lost last week and then they lost. So you're looking at that and you're going saying, if we can get by that hurdle, the following 3 games are worth everything, and the Peterhead game will take care of itself. And before you know where you are, you're into a summer break, because it won't be long. And
no, of course, I think it's one of the ones of
opportunity to play every game. It's great experience for you, Jay, and I'm sure you'll thoroughly enjoy it. And the point I would make is, I know Jay says that he's trying to go off for 20 past because he's got other things to do rather than talk to us. So
no, not at all. To be fair, I'll extend it over. If I need to, I'll extend it over. Just same preparation for every game, same preparation every week. So
stick with it. It's been successful, mate. I mean, at the end of the day, you've won 3 of the games that you played in, so that preparation's definitely working. That's the thing. I mean, I know Dennis is saying there, last game of the season, you get Peterhead, be prepared to clap them onto the park, etc. Peterhead are one of the sides this season who haven't beaten Clyde, Dennis. 2 draws up there, and Clyde have obviously beat them at home, So Peterhead will be looking to obviously set that right on the last game of the season. But as I say, you've already said, Jay, you don't want to look too far ahead, you know. So, what do Clyde need to do to get a victory tomorrow?
Just do what we've been doing.
Yep.
Just do the exact same things that we've been doing, that we've been winning games. Obviously, Edinburgh City are more of a ball playing team, so it's deciding when to do the right things and when to move on and stuff like that. So if we do the right things, then there's a great chance of us doing it and send the fans home happy again, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. Have they surprised you this season, Edinburgh City? Obviously, I mean, earlier in the season, Clyde obviously beat them in the City Cup,
Trophy.
you know, the
Premier
the
Sports
Minnie Mouse Cup. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Clyde beat them in that, destroyed them actually pretty much. But since then, there's been a kind of almost a turnaround in the fortunes of the sides. Clyde's have kind of been struggling a wee bit. Edinburgh City looking as though they could well secure a promotion play, or at least a promotion playoff place. Have you been surprised as to how well they've done this season?
I think, like Dennis was saying, it's like people can, if you expect after you get tomorrow's hurdle, you can play other teams. But I think the thing in this league is anyone can beat anyone. So when we beat Edinburgh City then I think they done well against Queen's Park and stuff like that, and different other cups. And we were like, as they were going, they found their fundamentals of the way they wanted to play. And I think I've watched their managers' interviews and stuff like that before, and it really does have a style of the way he wants his team to play, which I think it's the same as us. If we've bought in with our gaffer, I think their players must just have bought in with the way he wants to play. So if it surprised me, yes, just because of the initial reaction of when we last played them, when the boys done their job against them. But if I've been surprised of the way they tried to play against us and the way they've led to it where they are right now, no, because the way they play football is a joy to watch at times.
Yep.
Like it's nice football. They like to try and play. So hopefully not tomorrow, touch wood, but it's one of the ones of when you could recognise a good footballing team that play nice football. I think it was one of the ones of, especially when they had Connor. Like we had Connor obviously at Clyde last year, but Connor was flying, scoring goals and all that, etc. And now he's away, so it's a wee bit different for them. I don't know if they're up and down a wee bit because they don't have that consistency with Connor, but it's one of the ones of I think they are a good football team. So you could see the way they wanted to play, and I think that helps them massively going forward for them.
Yeah, definitely.
And a point I was thinking, because obviously as you come down the leagues, we're saturation point with all the top games nowadays. And then, especially if you're watching it on TV, and a goalkeeper has got the option now to understand who's taking a penalty against them, has all the stats in the world of where the last 10 penalties have gone. Having said that, they still don't make a great job of saving them. But the thing is, if you look at a match and you know your opposition, believe it or not, it's not the easiest. Well, I'll say that it's not the easiest thing in the world to beat a goalkeeper at a penalty spot. Seriously. It might look simple, but if you've got a really good goalkeeper, I'll tell you what, it's not as easy as it looks. I'll say that.
Just conceded a penalty against Renard as well, and you're saying that. So it's one of the ones. If I'll just keep quiet then now.
Well, the point I was going to make about it is, do you have any stats or information about the penalty takers of each Saturday when you're coming to a game? Is that something you get at the division? I know in my days we really didn't have a lot of stuff like that. I'm just wondering if technology now has maybe brought a wee bit more to the party, so to speak, to help you out.
To be fair, the goalie coach James is really good with us. He does like a lot of work behind the scenes for us and stuff like that, and looks into it and helps us out. And I believe, because when I was at Forfar, Mark McCallum's been there for years, but he's played football for years, and he kind of drilled it into me. If he doesn't think penalties is just luck, there's actually stuff in behind it for a goalkeeper, and it's always stayed with me. So ever since that, and then the way James does the work and stuff, I think there's a wee bit more to it than just a bit of luck. So there is stats and stuff like that there, but everyone's got their own routine. Like I got booked at the weekend because I still had my routine and I stuck with it. So I think there's a lot more information that you can get, but who's to know that striker, he's went 9 times, right? Or 9 out of 10 times he's went left, and that one time he's went right, and you decide to go that right way. So it's one of the ones that's still a wee bit of a guess, but there's a wee bit more information that you can look into now that might help you ahead.
Yeah. Do you actually make your mind up before You know, you maybe have a look at the.
I'm giving away my secrets.
I know, but there's got to be an element of that. It's either luck or you're making your mind up and thinking.
I know
that's roughly where it'll be going.
Due to seeing where their last, just say their last 3 penalties, right? If we've even got that on file, their last 3 penalties say that they've went left twice and then the one right. I'll try and make his mind up for him. And I'll try and make his mind up for him of where he's going, and then I'll pick my decision of where I'm going after the stupidness that I try and get in his head with. So I try not to swear, so it was one of the ones of trying not to get trying not to get carried away, but just so I'll try and get in his head as much as possible before it. So it's one of the ones if there's a wee bit behind it.
Well, Jay Dennis was talking about his day. You know what I mean? In his day, it was still black and white TV and things like that. So, so don't worry about the lack of stats. Listen, Jay. Listen, I really, really appreciate the time you've given us tonight. We've ran over a few minutes, and I really appreciate the time you have given us, mate.
Anytime.
It's been great, and obviously all the best for tomorrow. The remaining 5 games of the season, and as Dennis says, 5 wins gets you 5th. But hey, it's always simple in his. It's always simple in his eyes, you know. So that's it. But
guys,
all the best for tomorrow.
For
Thank you very, very much, as I say, for giving us your time. Enjoy the game tomorrow.
Thank you, right, guys. I'll see you soon. Thank you, guys. Thank
you very much. Cheers now. Cheers. Dennis, Jay Kennedy there. As he says, he's sort of broke into the Clyde team the last few weeks. He did have his debut just after the turn of the year, and then he's gone sort of 3 months again where he was the substitute keeper or you know. But he's broke through for whatever reason. The last three games, Clyde have won 2 of them. And that's pretty much, I think, as well. He says his first, obviously, ever podcast appearance, possibly his first interview. So, no, thanks very much, as I say, to G. Kennedy. Thanks to Paul Shanks for arranging it. Spoke very well.
Yeah, he's obviously a young man that's very professional. You can listen to the things that he's talking about in relation to his fitness regime, how close he is with his teammates. And he obviously works things out. He's not just turning up on a Saturday and hoping he gets a match. His preparation, even though he's not been playing, looks as if it's been very thorough. So he seems a good, level-headed professional player that basically would be great if he could see the rest of the season out and even get half the results of what's potentially there. Yeah. As I say, looking at the stats, he's not exactly taking a hammer in any of the games goal-wise. So, yeah, he's got a bit there for Clyde to offer, and hopefully does well.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, he's played well. The first game, as I say, against Stirling Albion, I've said obviously he played well. He didn't have a great deal to do. You know, Clyde completely dominated that game, as I say, as they did earlier on in the season against Stirling Albion. I think that game, as I says to you, Stirling Albion had 1 shot and goal and won the game 2-0. You know, which was that sheer fluke that kind of thing happens, you know. But as I say, fair play to him. He's definitely come in, and he's humble enough as well to realise that he's not secured that number 1 jersey at all, you know. So no, just I think there's bigger and better things to come from him. Hopefully, a lot of them will be at Clyde. Obviously, news coming out yesterday morning or this morning. I think actually it broke last night, but Clyde made a statement on it. The fact is that what we were talking about last week, you touched on it in terms of obviously security for Clyde, you know, in terms of a long-term future and things like that. That long-term future may well not be at New Douglas Park. There's some talk come out the last couple of days that Hamilton are exploring the possibility of how basically the Clyde don't play there anymore. And if that happens, I don't know what's going to happen for the club.
Well, I look at it and think, well, it's down to revenue, really, because you've got to pay whoever's club you borrow. And I'm sure there'll be clubs out there that would be willing to actually have Clyde on board, but it costs money. And when that's happening, you've got to have a pocket that can feed that higher a pitch and facilities and everything that goes with it. I know you have your own upkeep if you have your own stadium, but, you know, I still look back at it and think it's a disappointment that Broadwood wasn't there potentially as long as most people were alike to support Clyde. But at the same time, you look at Clyde, they've bounced about now, I don't know how many times, to pillar to post almost. To me, I grew up with Clyde being at the top flight. I mean, they used to play against the Celtic and the Rangers a way back.
Yeah.
It is a million years ago. But at the same time, yeah, they were a good team. And they're part of the history of Scottish football. And I'd hate to see them going to the wall because they don't have the facilities. Yeah. You'll know better than me, Cammy, what the potential is for them to find another home. Hopefully, it will be sooner rather than later. But I wouldn't like to see them throwing the towel in on us. Definitely not. I think there's enough people have Clyde at their heart, even if they don't support them, to think that they're not going to end up like third Lanark, even though we've rattled our gums for 40, 50 years about third Lanark disappearing off the face of the earth. So we'll just need to wait and see what happens with it.
Yeah, I think the problem is Clyde continue to be nomads, or obviously they affectionately known as the Gypsy Army. You know, if Clyde continue to be that, the support is dwindling. And as I say, I think it can only dwindle each time Clyde need to find a new location to play. You know, it's been Shawfield, it's been Hamilton, they did a stint at Firhill, you know, before obviously moving to Broadwood. Now they're back to South Lanarkshire, which obviously, I mean, let's be honest, boundaries for counties and whatever else change as well, you know, depending on what parties in government and things like that, you know. But now that they're back in South Lanarkshire again, you know, at New Douglas Park, my worry, as I say, is that fans are going to get fed up with that, you know, into terms of where are we going this week, you know, where are we going this season, where do we need to play our games, you know. And my worry is that the support will just continue to flounder, you know, and eventually they'll start to give up on the club. You know, you're not going to have the chance to attract new fans because guys who maybe support Rangers and Celtic who are looking for a game, and traditionally that's what Clyde have relied on, I think, in terms of, you know, if there's a game in the Old Firm and there's nothing playing on a Saturday or a Sunday, you know, they maybe go along to watch Clyde, they maybe go along to watch some junior side or whatever as well, you know. But if all they're relying on is diehard and they're not picking up new fans because fans don't know where they're going to be, there isn't a hope or a future for the football club, you know, and I think that's very, very concerning at that level, Dennis.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'll use another example, and they bounced about as well, is my old club, East Stirling. Look where they are now. They're sitting in 12th spot out of a team of 18 in the Lowland League. And you've got junior teams that are better equipped nowadays to succeed than second or third division teams. And that is where you don't want Clyde to go, because all the points you have raised there sort of the point to the direction of Lowland League because of the way it's situated at this moment in time. No, not very many supporters, no club, no stadium, anywhere to play. What do you do? You know, and I think it would be even worse for Clyde if it end up in the Lowland League, because people would drift away. I'm not saying there's anything up with the Lowland League, but the bottom line is you're looking at a league there at 18. Excuse me, and as I touched on a couple of weeks ago, you've got a whole load of teams that were not that long ago playing in the Scottish second division, or as it was originally third division. So, you know, you've got Albion Rovers, you've Cowdenbeath, you've East Stirlingshire, you've Berwick Rangers, you know, and you say to yourself, all these teams were really quite competitive at one point, the same as Clyde are at this moment in time. So I just think it's a very difficult league to get out of. That's the point I'm trying to make, really, is if they do go down into the Lowland League, then, excuse me, you've got a situation where I don't think that we maybe get back up, especially with the ground situation. But surely things have got to change when you look at what we were talking about for the first half hour, and that is the potential success of maybe getting mid-table if they can win some more games back-to-back, as they've been doing the last couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. So would that maybe have somebody that would be interested in speaking to Clyde without them going champing the door and saying, look, we would like you to ground share with us, you know, and maybe get some middle ground where the finances were not going to cripple the club. And that would see a bit of lifeblood put back into the team. And of course, listen, Clyde done okay for a while, getting supporters-wise. You're saying it's dwindled away, but that's only because they're at the bottom of the second division. If they were sitting up near the top of the new Cammy, I reckon you get another 300 or 400 on the crowd. You know, if they were challenging. It's all about challenging.
If they were challenging and had a secure base, that's the thing as well. That's the problem. And as much as they don't have a secure base, they're flitting about just now between grounds. I mean, for the last number of years at Broadwood, there was always a talk of Clyde moving away. Going back to the spiritual home of the East End of Glasgow. So that was always part and parcel of conversations amongst the support. Since I've been at New Douglas Park, it's been, where are we going to go? Where will we end up as a team? And going on with that, you then don't get into the community. You don't get a chance to chase, as I say, new support. Clyde's support is aging, and I think that's a worry as well. And they're not the only club like that. But I mean, if you get an aging support with very little opportunity to bring in new, fresh blood support, I mean, your crowds are only going to continue to dwindle. And you talk about the good old days when Clyde were playing in the top league, and they were maybe playing in front of 25, 30,000 at Shawfield, or going to Ibrox or Celtic Park and playing in front of 40, 50,000. These days are long gone, and most clubs at this level now are lucky to play in front of 1,000, 1,500 supporters. Clyde carry a great away support, but they carry a great away support in terms of percentage of their home support. So they've maybe got a home crowd of 800 fans, for instance. Of that 800 fans, pretty much you're talking about maybe 45 to 50% of them will go to away games as well. So I don't think there's many clubs at that level where the away support is such a percentage of the home of the home fans.
I sometimes think they're a wee bit like Queen's Park supporters. They've got that loyalty, and it is a tradition. And I look at the two clubs almost lined up with each other in relation to the people that go to it. But when you talk about the crowds, out of the division, you've probably got the best supported team in the division with an average crowd of 750, just under the 800 mark. When I look here at a game that was not that long ago, 22nd of March, was Edinburgh City, who are sitting in third, playing the second place, East Fife. There was only 395 at the game. So you're carrying double a support. Now, surely that alone would be enough to say there has to be an existence for the club, because you can't let a club of that, what would you say, not magnitude, but there's 700 odd people every week or every home game are willing to come along and watch Clyde. Somebody's got to rally around there with very much common sense and start to say, wait a minute, we shouldn't even be contemplating going to the wall because we haven't got a stadium. I think there is clubs out there, I'm sure Cammy would be more than happy to take Clyde on board. And you just have to soldier on.
But with Dennis, when we did the radio show, Clyde's average attendance was probably 14 to 1,500.
That's correct. That was at Broadwood.
That's the problem, and as much as you're now looking at support which is almost halved in less than 10 years.
Yeah, but I think
that's the concern.
That's venue. I don't think everybody was happy to go to Hamilton, Douglas Park, and whereas Broadwood seemed to be the home of Clyde for a long while. And if you look back, Celtic visited Clyde away back maybe 20 years ago, whatever, and they had people there, and the place was snowed. And there's been matches at Broadwood that actually, what would you say, was more than you would expect to watch Clyde on a Saturday, or even cup games. So, I don't think Clyde, when I look at a team that's potentially on the slippy slope, I would look at other teams in the division before them. But let's wait and see how the next few games go. I think a lot will depend on that. And I'm sure the club and the directors and the people that are involved will be working tirelessly to see if they can get another club that they don't need to worry about having to go with a begging bowl to stay at Hamilton.
Yeah, I'd love to know what the thinking of Hamilton board is indeed. If they are looking to basically end the lease of Clyde at New Douglas Park, but that's something I dare say maybe come out in the wash. Neither club are commenting too much on it. Obviously, Clyde have released their own statement, which pretty much didn't say much, but I don't expect them to be in a position where they can say too much. But anyway, that brings us on, Dennis, as we touched on earlier on. It brings us on to it's reared its ugly head again this week. We touched on it a couple of weeks ago in terms of for Tier 5 reconstruction, but league reconstruction has reared its ugly head again for the top 4 leagues for the SPFL, Premiership, Championship, League 1 and League 2, with many advocating a return, or some clubs apparently advocating a return to a 10-team top league. How that would work in relation to the other 3 leagues would need to remain to be seen. But what's your thoughts, Dennis? Ultimately, what kind of format do you feel would work for Scottish football best, and what kind of format do you feel that we're inevitably going to go to, probably I think from season 25-26?
Well, firstly, I haven't heard all the debates about what people prefer since it was first suggested at the start of the week. I think what I did pick up on was there was a suggestion of a 10-team top league, right?
Yeah.
Now, from what I've picked up, the league reconstruction, 11 of the 12 top flight clubs would need to vote in favour for that. I don't think that'll happen because they all have to look after their own interest. So there's not one, I would imagine, sitting in that Premier League now that would vote for that. It would be the 12, right? I think somebody need to point out to me, how are you going to get 12 to vote for that? Okay, you know that the big hitters will definitely vote for it, and the bottom ones will say this is our lifeblood. Then you look at the clubs with the top 2 divisions have also got to vote in favour, and that's 17 out of 22. And then clubs from the 4 divisions have got to vote in favour, and that's 32 out of 42. Now, if they're thinking of a 10-team league, I think it will be suicide for the rest of Scottish football. We spoke on here and we were looking at increasing the Premiership and getting some teams from the Championship in there. The problem you've got is that I see the teams that have wealth at the top, and we talk wealth, we're not talking the equivalent of English football, we're talking Scottish. And really, when it boils down to it, it really comes to Celtic and Rangers. Celtic first because they've got the financial clout and they will also get the votes. I mean, there's a period there where you sometimes, well, we still think it, that Celtic and Rangers run Scottish football. And I think they do it a point because nothing will ever get passed that doesn't favour the old firm, right? So therefore, they will take the 10 without any problem. But if you go down to Ross County, St Johnstone, it would be suicide for them to vote in that. What they should be looking at doing is increasing the Premiership and reduce the games. They're talking about the reason to do this is because of the congestion in the fixtures and the amount of games they've got to play. Okay, increase the league and play each other home and away. That's all you need to do, right? That to me is fine. Now, the teams that get invited into the top flight have to expect that you don't play each other 4 times or whatever you're going to do. I mean, it's just a nonsense for me. I think it should be more of matches to look forward to. Celtic and Rangers always, at some point in the season, pick up games against each other in cup ties, right? So there's the extra. If they're only playing each other home and away, then for me, I think you've got to be more up for the 2 games. Whereas you look at the last 2 matches, Celtic have had a bit of kicking off Rangers, when in actual fact, there's no bragging rights because, you know, throughout the season, you've had another 2 games. I don't think it else matters. I think that home and away, increase the top flight, And then you can start to look at what you do with the remainder of the teams. And it's not to say that they're cannon fodder and you just get rid of them. No, I think you can have a good league structure below that. But you've got to sort out the top flight first. And you've got to have opportunities for the teams that come up. And one of the things that I'm really adamant about is you do not get into that top table or go to the top table with artificial surface. Yeah. There's no way on this planet should you be invited to that. And I think it should be an invite, and there should be open arms to say, okay, let's look at what we've got here now. You look at Falkirk, right? You look at Ayr United, you look at Livingston. Livingston's already been there. Ayr United, maybe not so much in a long number of years. Falkirk more than capable. Pitch needs changed, but the Livingston needs to sort that out as well. But for me, you could even say the top four at this moment in time could be added, and we could have a 16-team league. And I think home and away, or even maybe one more, because what you don't want to do is find that there is teams, and Celtic and Rangers turn up and they're taking 7 and 8 goals off them. And that's when you start to look at maybe the lesser teams in that division, like Airdrie maybe being in there, but they're at the bottom anyway. Not so much Wraith Rovers. We've seen them in the Cup, they've done well. But there is teams that you don't want to be cannon fodder. But I think you've got to earn the right. And if there's payments available, teams can get strengthened if they know they're going into the Premiership. At this moment in time, you just look at the top league and you say to yourself, no, some of these teams are going to battle here in the Championship, and they're not going to get a sniff of actually getting into the Premiership because it's a closed door with the amount of games they've got to play.
Yeah.
So I look at it and I say 10. No, definitely not. I think I don't know who come up with 10. Honestly, when I seen it at first, I thought, are they being serious about this? Why not increase the leagues, home and away? And I think that would be better. Not Celtic or Rangers and Celtic supporters might not like the idea because it's only having the opportunity to play them home and away. But for me, no, you've got to increase that league and then start to look at the bottom leagues. And I think you could probably get better in the bottom leagues as well.
Yeah, and regionalising the lower leagues as well, I think, is for the financial stability of a lot of these clubs lower down, you know. But I mean, no, I'm in agreement with you. I mean, ultimately, I'd like to see a 16-team league, 16-side top league. I'll rephrase that. I don't think we will. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think enough clubs will vote for it in the top league. Why? I don't know. Because to me, it secures you at least one game against both halves of the Old Firm. You know, if you're a St Johnstone just now, or a Dundee, you know, or a Ross County, what would you rather have? Games against sides lower down the pyramid if you get relegated for the top team of 12, or reasonable stability in a top table of 16 where you're going to end up playing 2 games at home against the Old Firms, 2 games away against the Old Firm. You know, so that's what I would rather have. I don't think it will happen. I think the best that we could hope for would be 14. And as I say, I know there was something doing the rounds a while ago. We tried to get the lad from Improving Scottish Football on the podcast, but we've not been able to make it work yet. But he's actively has a video going around advocating a 14-side top league with a split. And you basically do a top 6 split and a bottom 8 split after each side has played each other twice. You know, so then you've got a split where the sides are playing home and away as well. You know, so I think that's maybe the best we could hope for would be 14 sides. Ultimately, yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I would like to see 16, but I don't think we'd see that happening.
Tell me something, Campy. What is the real benefit of having the split?
I think it's to make sure you're playing an adequate number of games. I don't think there is any real benefit of it, you know, and that's why they're shouting for the 10-team league, because at 10 teams, you play each other home and away 4 games, so there's 36 fixtures, and you don't have to contend with a split, you know. But if you go to 14, there's too few games there, you know. I think you're only looking at 26 games if you get 14 teams, and obviously if you go to 16, you're only looking at 30 games. I don't think there's anything wrong with playing 30 games a season. No, you know, but personally, I think that's more than adequate.
But it just seems a bit disrespectful to teams in the Championship when they actually want to put teams in the Championship from the Premier League. Surely their top flight should be trying to encourage the Championship to bring something to the party. It's like, no, we'll just keep it. It's all ours, our 10 teams. And in fact, if we could get away, why don't we make it 8? No, I'm sorry. I just think it's terrible that the shoddy way that they're looking at saying, oh, there's too many fixtures, we'll just reduce the Premier League.
Right. Dennis, you watch a hell of a lot more football than I do. I make no secret of the fact that most games I watch are on YouTube, just purely and simply because of the hours I work, the hour I start work at and things like that. And you're getting a lot of games on a Sunday and a Saturday and whatever else, you know. So later on at night, I mean, you know, you get a lot of games late on midweek and things like that. But you watch a hell of a lot more games of football than I have. Now, for what I've seen in the short amount of times I watch games, you know, what's been the best games you've seen this year? Okay, the Celtic Rangers 2-3 at Celtic Park, cracking game of football. Take that out of it. The Dundee derbies have been outstanding. You know, so a lot of the better quality games this season have actually included sides who aren't the Old Firm, who maybe aren't in the top 6. You know, you've had a lot of good quality, better quality games. Motherwell have been involved in a few decent games. Dundee United have been outstanding. Hibs, as they've started to come up through the leagues, you know, Hearts. A lot of the better games have not included the Old Firm. Yeah, you know, so Rangers against somebody, Celtic against somebody else. They've not been the better games to watch this season. So as a spectator and as somebody who's trying to sell games to the television, a lot of these games are better quality without Rangers and Celtic.
Yeah, one of the things so is you're talking about the masses here. And if you take Rangers or Celtic supporters, they want to win at all costs. I mean, there's been some garbage. We know that. We've talked about it long and hard before Barry Ferguson came in. And that's another subject, of course. But the thing is, there's been poor games and there's been decent games throughout. And the points you made about the Dundee derbies, I think Hibs and Hearts was a decent game. St Mirren have been playing well as well. You know, and in actual fact, there was a short spell where even Ross County looked not too bad, where you were finding that was okay. That was a decent match. But I don't think it really boils down to this. I just think it looks at the revenue in relation to what will the other teams bring to the party, and why won't they accommodate extra 2 or an extra 4 teams into that division? That's where I get stuck with this. I get really stuck because the solution to reduce games, home and away, end of story. Listen, if it's not broken, you don't try to fix it. It's obviously broken, the Premier League. That's why they're trying to fix it. They're trying to change it because it's not a selling tool throughout the world. It's not going to change the quality we're getting in Scotland because of the financial climate that we live in. That we're never ever going to bridge the gap with the English. So you have to accept what you've got. So the product is not what people are maybe looking at. Don't reduce the top flight. How's that going to improve it? I don't think that'll improve it.
We had that for 20 years and it was absolute garbage to watch. You know, it got to a stage there where you were getting, you know, the games that were finishing 5-6-0. You know, since we've increased to 12, there's been less games that are getting dominated. Okay, you're going to get a fluke game, a fluke result every so often. But since we moved to a 12-team league, there's been less games where one of the sides is getting absolute pace than they're doing. You know, we don't see as much of it.
Listen, I can live with that. If a team comes in from the Championship and makes up a 16-league team, I would expect initially for them to be taking a bit of a kicking. But you've came to the top table, you're sitting in there, and you've earned it because you've got yourself out of the Championship into the top flight. How many managers we actually seen have done exceptionally well? We can look at England in that. Have come out of the Championship in England, went into the Premier League. They've won the Championship hands down. They've done a magnificent job. And these guys don't see past Christmas because they come into a different league and they get absolutely mauled and the manager gets a bullet that was outstanding the year before. I think I can live with that if it happens in our Premiership, simply because it will make us a tougher outfit. And I think some of the games when you find that you get the Falkirks and the teams like that could come up, I'll tell you what, it's not easy for the old firm. Sometimes I just think it can be too easy for them because it's the same thing that they're up against week in and week out.
Yeah.
Look at a little bit and see how they handle the other teams.
Well, before the turn of the year, Celtic's toughest game was a cup game against Falkirk.
Yeah. And then you look
You
at
know,
Rangers'
so-
toughest game was against Queen's Park.
Against Queen's, well, that's aye. They certainly did tough against them anyway, you know, but certainly in the league they did a few stinkers. But that was, I think, down to Rangers being absolute garbage rather than obviously the quality of the opposition.
Mhm.
But no, I mean, to me, I don't see the point. As you say, if it's broken, don't fix it. Obviously, they feel it is broken at 12, but don't go back to something that was broken a long, long time before this one.
Yeah.
You know, but that's just foolish. You know, that there's absolutely makes no sense at all to return to a 10-team league. And thankfully, I think the general consensus in the media is that we will not be going back to a 10-team league. There's too many fan-owned sides who are going to vote against that. You know, I don't see Hearts allowing that to happen. I don't see Motherwell allowing it to happen. The St Johnstone chairman's already come out and says he's not going to allow it to happen. The only problem with that is his side might not be in the Premier League next season, so he might not get a vote on it, you know. So from that point of view, I think that it's not going to be a case of turkeys will vote for Christmas, because I don't think it will happen. But I think now, if it's open for discussion, it's definitely a time where we need to look at expanding our top league rather than reducing it in numbers.
You know, everybody's speaking about it just now, as far as I'm aware. And I look at it and I go, who's put the cat among the pigeons? Where did this idea come from, 10 teams?
Yeah.
Who actually sits and thinks and has logic behind it that says this will be better? Did they just go and say, see if we take 2 teams out of that? By the way, that's less games, isn't it? Brilliant, you want to watch. I mean, it's absolutely shocking.
But it's more games.
I know, but seriously,
You know,
it's
it's
unbelievable
nonsense.
what some of these people are coming up with.
Absolute nonsense. But
anyway,
hey, it is what it is. Right, what we're looking at tomorrow, what's the games that we've got to excite us over the rest of the week?
Yeah, let me look back to something that I watched the other night, and that was, and it wasn't the best. And
You be careful what you're saying here now.
What?
Might be watching.
No. We'll come on to that in a minute. Was the Liverpool and Everton game, right? And the reason I'm going to bring it up is a VAR situation again.
You're going to bring Tarkovsky up?
Correct. Absolutely disgusting that we have got a referee and we have VAR. And I'll tell you what, it was one of the quickest decisions I've seen for a long while that they made the tackle on McAllister. And it was absolutely disgraceful. How the boy, he could easily have broke his leg. And I seen them apologising to McAllister at the end of the game because he knew it was reckless. But where does VAR look at that? It's worse when you look at it in VAR or look at it in a replay. Worse. So they've got that. I was shocked when they came back and said, it's still a yellow. I'm looking at it and going, seriously? Now, I would have been absolutely livid if I'd been on the bench as a manager. And that kind of tackle, they get away with it. Considering you have VAR, you could understand it again if it's a referee error. But I have to go back to it. Absolutely disgusting decision. They're the kind of tackles that go back whenever I was younger playing. They used to go through that, right? But the game is nothing like that now. And if we're going to live with VAR, you've got to look and say, what kind of people are in that room that's making that decision? They know nothing about football because that was a horrendous tackle. Absolutely horrendous. Anyway, I know you're thinking I was going to say was basically last week we had Billy Reid in, our friend from West Ham last week. So like every week, where Billy's managing or coaching or wherever, I always watch the games. But I must admit, it was one of the poorest matches I had seen all season. And I think if there is if there's 3 of the players in that starting lineup next year for West Ham, I will be very, very surprised. The reason I say that is they've got nothing in real terms of a team that the most you can do is go out there and try not to get beat as against trying to win. And we're also the same. We also have done okay since the new guys come in. But between the two of them, there was 30,000 at that game, and there was quite a few travelled up from London for West Ham supporters. And when I looked at the game, I said, dearie me, that's poor. And I think it was a matter of just don't get beaten this. But my view is, in a lot of games, you can only work with what you've got. And I think that's the situation that Graham Potter's got with West Ham. They need to get rid of, I don't know what's on the sidelines, but the bottom line is there was 8 out there that I thought you'll not start next year, because I'm sure that both Billy and him and Bruno, as part of the main setup at West Ham, will be looking at it now and saying we can only do what we can with them, but no good enough. Definitely no good enough.
See when you look at the West Ham squad, they've got two good goalkeepers in Areola and Fabianski. I think is one of the better substitute keepers. You know, they've also got Wes Foderingham as their number 3. You know, you look at their defensively, got a couple of good young lads. I mean, Aaron Cresswell's now 35. They've also got Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who previous manager tried to make into a sort of more forward-thinking right back, you know, full back. I didn't think it was his game, but he managed to get something out of Bissaka in that. Edson Alvarez, Billy says they brought in Maxwell Cornet back, you know. Andy Irvin's starting to play for them as well. I thought he only played rugby. But, you know, James Ward-Prowse they've brought back in, obviously from his loan spell. Jared Bowen, the lad you were talking about, Evan Ferguson, who's on loan from Brighton. And I think the guy you were talking about up front, Nicholas Fulcraig. You know, beyond that, West Ham don't have much. You know, they really... For a side who have spent a lot of money every single transfer window, they do not appear to have much strength.
I still look at that team though, and I think one or two of them with better players with them might help. Wan-Bissaka, when he was at Man United, I thought he was quite promising. Now I look at him and I think, I'll use the word, he's unstable. I just don't figure him out. And I think you've got potential to be very, very good, but you've also got the potential to be absolutely shocking when it comes to defending. Yeah. And you could go through the team. Creswell, he's not half the player he used to be.
He's 35, Dennis. He's 35.
But still,
Aaron Cresswell, he's been around forever, but I didn't think he was as old as that, you know. But
at the same time, Cammy, you're playing against Wolverhampton Wanderers, and you're looking at that and you're going to yourself, I would expect more. If he's 35, then he shouldn't be in the team if you find that he's too old. But I don't think that's too old.
No, neither do I.
Use that experience. Killman, he doesn't do it for me. And I'm not going through the whole team because you then start to nitpick. The boy Ferguson, I think, is a sign of having very little up front because he's just a youngster. Billy rates him highly, and I know he had a good spell, and then he picked up injuries before he ended up, as he is now, playing with West Ham. But the thing about it is that when you're relying on a youngster like that, in the Lions' den, it's a hard shift for you. It really is. And, you know, you imagine the people that we talk about up here, like Dessers. You imagine Dessers playing in that team when he had 11 chances at the weekend and he managed to get one. Mm-hmm. These boys wouldn't exist down there. That's what I'm saying. So, you know, you're not getting any chances when you're playing with teams like West Ham and Wolves. So, no, without rattling on too much about that particular game, I think West Ham have got a lot of work to do, and they are fortunate at this moment in time. I would say that they are probably got enough points to avoid relegation, and it's maybe good that they'll get the summer. They'll get the summer to build that team up, and I think we'll see a different team altogether.
I think we'll need to. You know, I mean, my concern about West Ham is pretty much the same concern we had at Brighton as well. Whilst they concentrate on making the side difficult to beat, it's almost as though they forget about what's happening up front. You know, and we look at the guys that have come in and replaced Graham Potter at Brighton. I think Brighton now are on their third manager since Potter left to go to Chelsea, and obviously took his coaching staff with him. Each one has made Brighton more exciting to watch. You're talking about a side who put 7 by Forest earlier in the season. A Nottingham Forest side have been very, very difficult to beat. Okay, they get knocked out of the cup by them at the weekend, but as I say, Brighton to me have gone from strength to strength since obviously Graham Potter started something there. But be interesting to see what happens for the rest of the season, but definitely next season as well. And my only thing about that is the amount of players who West Ham seem to bring in consistently every season. There's a high turnover of squad down there. There always seem to have been the last few years, and whether it's because they're changing the manager consistently or whatever, I don't know. But there definitely does seem to be quite a high turnover of players down there. But certainly, I hope everything goes well for Billy. Goes well for obviously Graham Potter down there, because I think it's a big job they've took on at West Ham, and obviously the two of them are looking to kind of rebuild their career after things didn't quite work out at Chelsea for them, So all the best to them. But listen, it's now just after 8 o'clock. If you're getting along to a game tomorrow, I hope you certainly enjoy it. There are a lot of good games on tomorrow, Dennis. Do we have time to very, very quickly run through the fixtures?
Yeah, well, what I'll do is, because it's always good to look at the Premier League from just last week, just briefly, you were talking about good games, an exciting game, although it is quite laughable amount of chances. Dundee 3, Rangers 4. Dundee had that game wrapped up, and then you could see it. I just thought they ran out of steam a wee bit, and Rangers' chances, and I did touch on it. Dessers, 11 chances. He should have scored at least 6 or 7 of the chances. That just sums it up for me. Listen, Rangers fans will say, brilliant. Oh, he scored great. But I'm sorry. Before Dundee get control of that game, there's chances we're going a begging.
Yeah.
And the Rangers supporters should be sitting up there before half-time with the game in the bag, with the amount of chances that he's been given, and not taking them. Instead of that, they're biting their fingernails right through to the end and grasping it in the dying minutes because of the chances they're missing. And what I hope they do realise is, yes, he'll score chances, but it's not doing the Rangers supporters any good because they're having to hang on to the last minute there. But
the difference Barry Ferguson's actually made since he came in, in terms of there's exciting games. Rangers players are playing to the end as well, whereas at 3-1 to Dundee, Rangers players were geared up the ghost in that, under Clement. So, as I say, Ferguson's got them playing. He's got them going 90 minutes, but he needs to still try and get a lot more out of his side.
Look, we're back to what we're just discussing with West Ham. He's not got the quality in there, and that's the bottom line. That is what they've went and beaten Celtic, and they've won against Dundee. But it'll be interesting this week because obviously that's a fixture that's coming up in Europe. He has done well in my eyes because it wasn't going to be very hard to do anything other than well. He's got the fire in their belly. Whether they are actually understanding what Rangers means in Scotland to Scottish football people, obviously the Old Firm are the main ones in relation to, we talk about that massive support. Listen, he has done a good job up to now, right? Because he's got them working, and whether he succeeds on Thursday, I don't know, because the other team that beat Roma, who they've got on Thursday night in the Europa League, they beat Roma quite convincingly. But Roma get beat 3-1 with them, and Bilbao were only up against 10 men. You've got to look at that. Roma lost a player in the 11th minute, I think it was. So you're finding there that they've got their work cut out for that this week. Anyway, just going back to the Premier League where we were, the other matches was Celtic convincing against Hearts. I'll tell you what, great result for Hibs, 3-0 against St Johnstone, and what an unbelievable result for St Mirren, 5-1 against Kilmarnock. I think next week when we start to look at where the league is, we need to have a look at where Kilmarnock are, because I think potentially there's problems there. There really is. Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at the last half dozen games. He's lost 4 games, drawn 1 and won 1. and I think he's in a slippy slope, Derek McInnes. So I think he's going to have to get it turned around. Just looking at Aberdeen, another great result against Motherwell, who's been going okay, and Dundee United getting by against Ross County. The fixtures for tomorrow and Sunday is Dundee against St Mirren. That'll be interesting because Dundee did play well last week, and St Mirren, obviously, I've just pointed out, scoring 5. Kilmarnock and Motherwell, that'll be a battle. Rangers Hibs, interesting as well. Ross County and Aberdeen. Then Sunday, you've got St Johnstone against Celtic, and then Hearts are playing Dundee United. We'll get into the Championship, and we've got Airdrie, Partick, Dunfermline, Hamilton, Falkirk, Morton, Livingston, Queen's Park, and Raith Rovers against Ayr United. And then we go into the First Division. Annan are playing Queen of the South. Cove Rangers have got Inverness Cali. Kelty Hearts, Dumbarton, Montrose Arbroath, Stenhouse Muir are playing Alloa. And then your division, Cammy, the second division, we've already talked at length about it. Edinburgh City have Clyde. Elgin City have Stirling Albion. Forfar are playing East Fife. Peterhead, Bonnyrigg Rose. And Spartans are playing Stranraer. Back to the Champions League, of course, we've got the games coming up this week. Tuesday is given as Arsenal against Real Madrid. Bayern Munich are playing Inter Milan. And on Wednesday, Barcelona, Borussia Dortmund, PSG have got Aston Villa. Tell you what, good week's football in front of us.
Yeah.
I do fear a little bit. Billy Reid last week was saying PSG. He was singing their praises, and I'm the same. I think I ranted about it for a wee while, how good they were against Liverpool and getting beat 1-0.
They've been good.
They're outstanding, by the way. I can't see myself going past them. And I fear a little bit for Aston Villa because the season, I think, although they have done brilliant and punched well above their weight, I think the season might start to just catch up that little bit with them. And I'm hoping it's not against PSG because they've been good value this year.
They've been up and down, as your Spurs supporting friend has said, it's a 20-minute Villa, so at times they've looked good, at times they've looked average. Andy Burrows, our good friend from down south, is actually on. He's talking about Spurs there. He's in the chat, and he's talking about how poor Spurs have looked and pretty much that Postecoglou looks like a dead man walking down there, Dennis.
Yeah,
and they've obviously got inside Frankfurt in the Europa League during the week.
Yeah. I think he looks stressed out now.
Yeah,
he really does. And I seen him actually shouting last night quite strongly from the dugout, and I thought that's not like him. He normally keeps control of it, but I think it's catching him. I really do. I think he's getting very frustrated. I don't know whether he's happy with the team he's got or the team he's got's not doing what he's asking. But it's been a long, hard season for him up to now. One way of refreshing that would be he beat Frankfurt and, a wee bit light then at the end of the tunnel. It would be brilliant if he does that. I think he's a good manager.
I think for Spurs fans, that light at the end of the tunnel's the 6:45 for Houston, I think that's the problem, and it's in all likelihood it's a train because I don't think, Andy's been talking since the start of the season in terms of he's playing too high a line.
Yeah.
He's resistant to changing tactics, he doesn't have a plan B. In fact, I think most times Andy's saying he doesn't really have a plan A either, so I think his time is probably coming to an end. You look down at that Premier League. 13th, you've got Man United with 37 points. 14th, you've got Spurs with 34. 15th, you've got Everton with 34. 3 big sides down there, and they're all loitering in the not just the bottom half, but the middle reaches of the bottom half of the table, So I definitely think Postecoglou's time is probably coming to an end, and I think possibly they're only keeping a hold of him to see if he does keep his record up of winning a trophy in his second season, and all he's got is a Europa League left, and once he's out of that, I think he's gone.
Well, let's put it this way: the potential he's got with the squad he's got there now could beat Frankfurt, right? And then you look at what's left after that. He's still in with a shout. I wouldn't write him off, right? Because you never know with that Tottenham team whether they're going to turn up or not. That's the problem you've got.
Yeah.
And he's fallen on his own sword because he's not made the changes that people are crying out for. He's seen fit to play the way he wants to play, and it's not worked out as well as you would expect. As you rightly say, Man United sitting in 13, no acceptable. That's their position in the league. And Tottenham, 14th in the league. Never in anybody's eyes would you have put money on that to think that they would end up so low. They've still got a bit to go, right enough. But at this moment in time, they are poor league positions. And most managers, Cammy, would have been sacked before now.
Definitely. Andy just came back to you there. He says there's more chance of him singing the Scottish national anthem than Postecoglou turning Spurs around. You know, so I think
Andy doesn't know the words, that's why.
No, that's possibly right, but but no, I mean, I think he's right. I mean, Postecoglou, I think his time is up. They're notorious for getting rid of managers early, good managers early, you know. So I certainly don't see them keeping a hold of a manager who's just not doing it down there at all, you know. And I think that's what's going to happen. And Postecoglou, I don't think there's a place in Scotland for him yet, you know, unless obviously it's going to be in charge of the national team. But there's another debate. No, listen, we'll be going for an hour and 15 minutes tonight. See what happens when we start on time. But there we are. Listen, Dennis, it's been an absolute pleasure tonight. Thank you very much to Jay Kennedy for his appearance at the start of the show. Certainly appreciate that. Thanks for the contributions for the guys in the chat. You know, we've had a busy chat going tonight as well. Thanks to you, Dennis, as always, for joining us and keeping my lack of Scottish knowledge, lack of football knowledge intact. You know what I mean? So thank you very much. Cheers, Andy Burrows. You're a star, mate. Thank you. I appreciate it. And by the way, he knows every word of Flower of Scotland. So there you are.
All right, good.
As we say every week, go ahead, like, share, subscribe. It does help us out a hell of a lot. Tell your friends, because it is always happening on the pitch. Good night.